My name is Leah Mercer. I'm 27 years old, and the first thing I saw after the crash was not a doctor's face. It was my phone lighting up on the metal tray beside my hospital bed. I remember reaching for it with one hand because the other was wrapped, stiff, and burning from my shoulder down to my wrist. The nurse told me I had been lucky. Lucky. That word almost made me laugh. I had a cracked rib, stitches near my hairline, and a hospital gown that didn't close properly in the back. But somehow, that was still not the worst part of my day. The worst part was opening my family group chat and seeing photos from a luxury spa weekend. Matching robes, champagne glasses, smiling faces, a caption that said, "A perfect day with the people who matter most." I stared at that sentence until the letters blurred. They had been told I was in the hospital. The emergency contact had been called. The voicemail had been left. The text from the hospital social worker was sitting there with a timestamp. And still, nobody came. Not one person. Not a, "Are you alive?" Not a, "What room are you in?" Not even a fake heart emoji. For 2 days, I watched them celebrate while I learned how to breathe without pain. Then, still wearing that hospital bracelet, I opened my phone to 53 missed calls and one message from my father. "Call us back now. It's serious." That was the moment I understood something cold and simple. They didn't forget me. They just remembered me only when they needed me. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out of that hospital with nothing but a plastic bag of ruined clothes, tell me, what time is it for you right now? And where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels, because somewhere out there, someone else is probably learning the same painful lesson I learned in that hospital bed. I worked as a fraud prevention analyst for a medical billing company in Cleveland, Ohio, which sounds boring until you realize my entire job was catching people who lied on paperwork, hid money, moved responsibility, and expected someone else to clean up the mess. Maybe that's why the truth hit me so hard when it finally turned toward my own family. I spent my days tracing suspicious claims, duplicate invoices, false dependents, and payment patterns that did not make sense. Then I spent my evenings being the unpaid emergency fund for the Mercer family. My father, Richard Mercer, used to run a small appliance repair shop, but by the time I was 25, he was mostly running excuses. My mother, Elaine, sold handmade candles online whenever she felt inspired, which usually meant twice a month and only if someone else paid for the supplies. My younger sister Madison was 24, beautiful in the way people reward before they ask questions, and allergic to consequences. If her car insurance lapsed, I paid it. If my parents' mortgage was short, I covered it. If Madison accidentally spent rent money on a weekend trip, everyone looked at me like I was selfish for asking why. I was not rich. I was organized. I had a budget, a second freelance bookkeeping client, and a habit of saying yes before my own stomach had time to twist. The accident happened on a Wednesday morning. I was driving to a compliance review with a hospital network, rehearsing numbers in my head, when a delivery van blew through a red light and slammed into the driver's side of my car. There was a sound like metal being folded by giant hands, then glass, then silence. When I woke up, a police officer was asking me if I knew my date of birth, and a nurse was telling me not to move. I asked whether anyone had been contacted. She said yes. My emergency contact had been called. My mother. I waited for the panic. I waited for the door to burst open. I waited for my father's voice, Madison's dramatic crying. Something. Instead, my phone buzzed with Madison posting a selfie in a white robe, cucumber water in one hand, my mother grinning behind her, and my father giving a thumbs up like he had just won a prize. "Spa reset weekend," Madison wrote. "Family time is healing time." I typed, "I'm in the hospital." My thumb hovered over send. Then I noticed the hospital number had already texted my mother. I noticed the missed call from the social worker had gone out 5 hours earlier. I noticed my own message from that morning, telling the group I was headed to a big meeting, had been ignored completely. So I erased what I typed. I wanted to see what they would do without being reminded to care. Day 1 passed. Nobody came. Day 2 came with a physical therapist teaching me how to stand without clutching the bedrail like I was drowning. Still nobody. But the group chat kept blooming with proof that they were alive, awake, and capable of responding when the topic was Madison's massage, my mother's facial, or my father complaining that the resort coffee was too fancy. The nurse, a woman named Denise, caught me staring at the screen and said gently, "Honey, do you have someone coming to pick you up tomorrow?" I lied before I understood why. "Yes," I said. "My family." She nodded, but her eyes stayed soft in a way that told me she did not believe me. That night, the doctor told me I could likely be discharged the next afternoon if the scan stayed clear. I nodded like I was listening, but my mind was somewhere else. I was mentally opening every payment app, every automatic transfer, every shared login I had created to keep my family floating. Mortgage cushion account, Dad's shop utilities, Madison's car payment, Mom's supplier invoices, their phones, their insurance. The emergency credit card in my name that they called the family card, though I was the only one paying it. For years, I had treated my life like a support beam in a collapsing house. If I moved, everything would fall. Lying there with tape on my arm and bruises across my ribs, I finally asked the question I had avoided for years. Why was I holding up a house where nobody even checked whether I was still breathing? The next morning, Madison posted a video of herself laughing in a steam room, whispering, "Mom says we deserve this after such a stressful year." I had to pause it because my chest tightened so hard the monitor beside me changed rhythm. Stressful year. I thought about January, when my father called me at midnight because the mortgage payment had bounced, and he said, "Leah, if you don't fix this, your mother won't sleep." I fixed it. I thought about March, when Madison cried that her credit card was maxed because she needed professional clothes. And then I saw photos of her in Nashville wearing boots that cost more than my weekly groceries. I fixed that too. I thought about June, when my mother said her candle supplier would cancel her account unless someone covered the balance, and somehow I became that someone. Every crisis had a name, a deadline, and my bank account attached to it. But my crisis? My real crisis? It apparently could wait until after hot stones and aromatherapy. Around noon, I called my mother. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I called Madison. She declined it. 30 seconds later, she sent a text to the group chat. "Ugh, Leah is probably calling about money stuff again." My fingers went cold. There it was. Not concern, not confusion, irritation. I read that sentence again and again until something inside me stopped begging. I did not cry. That surprised me. I had cried before over smaller things. Forgotten birthdays, backhanded compliments, the way my parents introduced Madison as our sunshine, and me as our practical one. But in that hospital bed, after reading that text, I felt no tears. I felt clarity. Clean, sharp, almost peaceful. I opened my banking app. I turned off the automatic transfer that covered the difference between my parents' mortgage and what they actually paid. I froze the emergency credit card. I removed Madison from the shared phone plan upgrade authorization. I emailed the appliance shop landlord, politely explaining that I would no longer be a voluntary payment contact for Richard Mercer's lease. I changed the passwords on the grocery delivery account, the streaming account, the wholesale supply account, and the online bill portal my parents never bothered to learn. Then I opened a blank note on my phone and wrote one sentence. I am not abandoning them. I am returning their responsibilities. I stared at it for a long time. It felt harsh. It felt true. When Denise came in to check my blood pressure, she saw my face and asked, "Bad news?" I said, "No. For once. Maybe it's good news." She helped me sit up, and the pain shot through me so fiercely I nearly cursed, but even that pain felt honest. It belonged to me. It was not a bill someone hid from me, not a lie wrapped in family guilt, not another mess passed across the table with the words, "You're better at handling this." Before discharge, the hospital administrator came in to confirm my ride. I told her I would use a rideshare. She frowned, but did not argue. I left the hospital in paper slippers because one of my shoes had been cut off after the crash. My clothes were in a plastic bag. My hair was tangled. My body felt like it had been dragged through gravel. And still, when I stepped into that car alone, I felt more respected by a stranger with a clean back seat than I had felt from my own family in years. The driver asked, "Rough day?" I looked out the window at the gray Cleveland sky and said, "Actually, I think it's the first honest one I've had in a long time." I did not go to my apartment first. I went to my parents' house. That sounds dramatic, but I had a reason. My laptop was there because I had spent the previous weekend helping Dad organize paperwork, which really meant finding shutoff notices he had shoved into a drawer under takeout menus. I needed that laptop, and I needed the folder inside it with my tax documents, my insurance forms, and every receipt proving what I had paid for them. When I walked in, the house smelled like lavender candles and unpaid bills. My mother, Elaine Mercer, was at the kitchen island unpacking a spa gift bag like she had returned from a spiritual pilgrimage. Madison Mercer sat at the table scrolling through photos of herself. My father, Richard Mercer, was opening mail with the expression of a man offended that envelopes existed. For a full 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then my mother looked me up and down. Hospital bracelet, bruised cheek, sling, paper discharge bag, and said, "Leah, why didn't you tell us it was that serious?" I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because fraud always starts with a sentence that tries to move blame away from the person holding it. "The hospital told you," I said. My father cleared his throat. "We were away, and your mother's phone was on silent during treatments." "For 48 hours?" I asked. Madison rolled her eyes. "Okay, don't be dramatic. You're standing here, aren't you? There are sentences that do not just hurt you. They educate you." That one taught me exactly how little my pain cost her. I walked past them, picked up my laptop from the side table and unplugged the charger. My father's eyes followed the movement. Not my sling, not my bruises. The laptop. "Before you go," he said, suddenly alert, "did you change something with the mortgage buffer account?" I got an alert. My mother stopped unpacking. Madison finally looked up. There it was. The real emergency. Not the accident. Not the hospital. The money. I turned around slowly. Yes. I closed my automatic transfers. My father's mouth opened. "You can't just do that." "I can," I said. "It's my account." My mother pressed a hand to her chest. "Leah, we just got back. This is not the time to punish everyone." I stared at her. "I was in the hospital while you were posting robe pictures. You didn't come. You didn't call." Madison declined my call and said I was probably calling about money again. Madison's face changed, just slightly. Not guilt. Annoyance at being quoted accurately. "It was a joke." "No," I said. "It was a diagnosis." My father slapped the envelope against the counter. "Do you understand what happens if that money doesn't transfer? The mortgage, the shop lease, the supplier invoice your mother has due, Madison's car." "Yes," I said. "I understand completely. I've understood for years. That's why I'm done." The kitchen went silent except for the refrigerator humming. My mother's eyes watered, but I knew that performance. Tears were her favorite currency when cash failed. "After everything we've done for you?" she whispered. I almost laughed then. "Name it." She blinked. "What?" "Name what you've done for me in the last 3 years that didn't end with me paying for something." My father pointed at me. "Careful." "No, Dad. Careful was me keeping your shop lights on when you told everyone business was fine. Careful was me paying Madison's car note so she wouldn't lose her job, even though she called me boring for driving a used sedan. Careful was me covering Mom's supplier balance while she told her Facebook group she was a self-made entrepreneur. I have been careful for all of you, and while I was in a hospital bed, nobody was careful with me. Madison stood up fast enough to scrape the chair. So what? You're cutting us off because we went to a spa? No, I said. I'm cutting you off because I finally saw what happens when I stop being useful for 5 minutes. I put the laptop under my good arm and walked to the door. My father followed me into the hallway, lowering his voice the way he did when he wanted control without witnesses. Leah, don't make a decision you'll regret. I turned. I already did. I made it every month. I paid bills for people who couldn't visit me one floor above the emergency room. His face hardened. Family doesn't keep score. People who always owe say that. Then I opened the door and stepped outside. Behind me, my mother started crying, Madison started shouting, and my father started dialing someone. Probably the bank, maybe the landlord, maybe any person he could blame before he blamed himself. I stood on the porch for 1 second, breathing through the pain in my ribs, and wondered whether the neighbors heard. Then I realized I no longer cared. Let them hear. For once, the truth was leaving that house louder than my silence. The 53 missed calls came the next day. They started at 7:14 in the morning, while I was sitting on my couch with an ice pack against my ribs and my laptop open to a spreadsheet titled Mercer Financial Boundaries. I had made it partly because of work habit and partly because numbers do not gaslight you. A number either exists or it does not. A payment either came from your account or it did not. By the time the sun rose, I had a list of every bill I had touched in the last 18 months, and the total was so obscene, I had to stand up and walk around my apartment before I could look at it again. I had paid enough to buy a decent car. I had paid enough for a down payment on a condo. I had paid enough to take 6 months off and heal from being everyone's backup plan. Instead, I had bruises, a sling, and a family calling me selfish because the free ride stopped moving. At 8:03, my father texted, "Call us back now, it's serious." At 8:05, my mother wrote, "Your father is shaking, please don't be cruel." At 8:09, Madison wrote, "You need to fix what you did." What I did. That phrase almost impressed me. They had transformed years of unpaid dependence into a crime I committed by stopping. I did not answer until 9:20, after my doctor's office called to confirm a follow-up appointment and asked again whether I had someone at home helping me. "I'm managing," I told them. That was the most accurate description of my life I had ever given. When I finally called my father back, he answered before the first ring finished. "Leah." His voice was sharp, panicked, stripped of all the fake authority he used at dinner tables. "The shop is locked." I said nothing. "The landlord changed the code. He said the lease is in default and your payment contact was removed. I can't get to my tools." "That sounds like something you should discuss with your landlord." He breathed hard into the phone. "Don't talk to me like a stranger." "Then don't treat me like an ATM with a childhood bedroom." My mother grabbed the phone next. "Leah, Madison's car is being towed from the driveway." In the background, I heard Madison screaming, "They can't take it. I have brunch." Brunch. The word floated through the line like a tiny, perfect symbol of everything wrong. My mother sobbed. "The insurance payment didn't clear. The car note is late. And they said there were prior notices." "There were," I said. "I forwarded them to Madison for 3 months." Madison shouted from somewhere farther away, "I thought you handled those." "I did," I said. "That was the problem." My father came back on. "Listen to me. We have 48 hours before the mortgage company escalates. Your mother's supplier account is frozen. My shop is locked. Madison can't get to work if they take the car. You need to put the payments back, and then we can talk about your feelings later." My hand tightened around the phone. Talk about my feelings later. After the mortgage. After the car. After the shop. After the candles. After brunch. There was always a later for me and an emergency for them. "No," I said. It came out soft, but it landed hard. The line went quiet. My father said, "Excuse me." "No, I'm recovering from a car accident. I'm not paying your bills. I'm not calling your landlord. I'm not rescuing Madison's car. I'm not unfreezing the card. I'm not explaining basic adulthood to 3 adults who ignored a hospital call." My mother cried harder. Madison grabbed the phone and said, "You're ruining our lives because you're jealous." That one almost got me. Not because it was true, but because it was familiar. Jealous was what Madison called me whenever I expected accountability. Jealous when I refused to pay for her Miami trip. Jealous when I asked why our parents praised her for getting a job I helped her apply for. Jealous when I did not clap loudly enough at her smallest accomplishment, while my own promotions were treated like convenient proof I could pay more. I closed my eyes. "Madison, I was hit by a van." "And you're fine," she snapped. "I am not fine," I said. "But I will be." Then I hung up. For 10 minutes afterward, my apartment was silent except for my own breathing. My hands shook. The old Leah would have called back. The old Leah would have said, "Okay, just this once." The old Leah would have transferred money she needed for physical therapy because guilt had been installed in her like software, but I was starting to uninstall it. That afternoon, my father sent a photo of the shop door with a red notice taped to it. My mother sent a photo of Madison crying beside an empty driveway. Madison sent a voice message so loud it distorted. "I hope you're happy." I listened once. Then I archived the chat. Not deleted. Archived. Because I did not want to pretend it never happened. I wanted proof. Sometimes healing begins when you stop arguing with the evidence. 2 days after I cut the payments, my phone looked like a crime scene. Missed calls, voicemails, bank alerts, messages from relatives who had not spoken to me since Christmas but suddenly had strong opinions about forgiveness. My aunt texted, "Your parents are under a lot of pressure. Be the bigger person." I replied, "I was the bigger person until I became the only person paying." She did not answer. A cousin wrote, "Madison says you're doing this for attention." I sent him one photo, my hospital bracelet beside the discharge papers with the emergency contact call log. He wrote back, "I didn't know." Exactly. Nobody knew, because knowing would require them to hold the right people responsible. By Saturday morning, the collapse had spread through the family like spilled ink. My father's shop landlord refused to reopen the unit without full payment, late fees, and proof of insurance. My mother's supplier canceled pending shipments because the card on file was frozen, and her last 3 invoices had already been extended as a courtesy. Madison's car was gone, and her manager, who apparently had tolerated months of lateness, told her not to come back until she had reliable transportation. The mortgage company had not taken the house in 48 hours. Life is not that cinematic. But the truth they had been hiding from each other came out in 48 hours, and that was worse. My father had told my mother the mortgage was only 1 month behind. It was 3. My mother had told my father her candle business was almost profitable. It had not made a real profit in 9 months. Madison had told both of them she was helping with utilities. She had not paid a dime. They did not lose everything because I stopped one payment. They lost the illusion that someone else would always absorb the consequences before they became visible. Around noon, my friend Noah Bennett came over with soup, pain medication from the pharmacy, and the careful expression of someone who knew I might break if he asked the wrong question. Noah worked in cybersecurity, which meant he understood systems, vulnerabilities, and the danger of letting the wrong people keep access. He looked at the spreadsheet on my laptop, then looked at me. "Leah," he said quietly, "this isn't helping family. This is financial self-harm." I tried to joke. "That bad?" "Worse. You built an entire life raft, handed it to them, and then apologized for being tired while they stood on your head." I laughed once, but it came out cracked. Then I told him everything. The spa photos, Madison declining my call, My father asking about the mortgage before asking about my injuries. My mother crying only after the money stopped. Noah listened without interrupting. That was new. In my family, silence meant judgment or waiting for your turn to demand something. With Noah, silence felt like space. When I finished, he said, "Do you want them to suffer? Or do you want them to stop using you?" I hated how hard the question hit. Revenge stories sound simple from the outside. Someone hurts you. You hurt them back. Everyone cheers. But real life is messier. I did not want my parents homeless. I did not want Madison destroyed. I wanted them to see me. I wanted one person in that house to say, "Leah, we were wrong to leave you alone in the hospital." Not, "We're sorry you felt ignored." Not, "We were busy." Not, "This is bad timing." Just the truth. I told Noah that. He nodded. Then make your boundary about access, not revenge. No money, no passwords, no emergency credit, no emotional negotiations while you're healing. If they apologize, let it be words. If they change, let it be behavior. But don't pay for the apology yourself. That became my rule. I wrote it down because pain medication made my thoughts foggy and guilt made them worse. No money, no passwords, no emergency credit, no negotiations while healing. That evening, my father came to my apartment. I saw him through the peephole, shoulders hunched, hair messy, holding a folder like paperwork could become love if arranged correctly. I did not open the door. He knocked softly first, then harder. "Leah, I know you're in there." I stood barefoot on the other side, one arm in a sling, heart beating so loudly I could hear it in my ears. "Please," he said. The word almost opened the door for him. Almost. Then he added, "We just need enough to get through this week." I stepped back. There it was again. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "Are you okay?" Just the number under the apology costume. I spoke through the door. "Dad, go home. We may not have a home if you keep this up." I closed my eyes. "You may not have a home if you keep blaming me for bills you created." He slammed his hand against the door once, not hard enough to break anything, just hard enough to remind me who he used to be in that house. "You think you're better than us now?" he said. I opened my eyes. My voice was calm when I answered, "No, I think I'm finally separate from you." He stood there for another minute. Then I heard him walk away. My knees weakened, and Noah, who had been waiting in the kitchen in case I needed him, came over without saying a word. I did not cry until then. Not because I regretted it, because some doors are heavy even when they need to stay closed. The final call came Sunday night, exactly 48 hours after my father's "call us back now" message. I was at my desk, wrapped in a blanket, reviewing a remote work accommodation form my manager had sent with actual concern in her email. "Take the time you need," she wrote. "Your health comes first." I read that sentence 3 times because it sounded like a foreign language. Your health comes first. My own workplace, a company that paid me for fraud reports and audit notes, understood something my family had refused to learn for 27 years. Then my phone rang. My father. I almost ignored it, but something in me wanted the ending to be spoken, not imagined. I answered on speaker and started recording, not for revenge, but because I was done letting people rewrite scenes after they ended. My father's voice was hoarse. "Leah." No command this time. No, now. Just my name, worn down. In the background, I heard my mother crying and Madison saying, "Tell her about the house." He inhaled. "Everything is falling apart." I waited. "The shop is done unless I pay by Tuesday. Your mother's account is closed. Madison lost her car and maybe her job. The bank wants documents. Your mother found out about the mortgage. Madison found out we used part of her savings when she was younger. Everyone is screaming. I can't fix it." That sentence should have satisfied me. For years, I had imagined my father admitting he could not fix something. But hearing it did not feel like victory. It felt like standing in the ruins of a house I had once tried to save with my bare hands. "I'm sorry things are bad," I said. "Are you?" Madison shouted in the background. "Because you caused this." My father snapped. "Madison, stop talking." That shocked me more than the call itself. He never snapped at Madison. She was the golden child, the fragile one, the one everyone protected from the weight of her own choices. Then my mother took the phone. "Leah, baby, I need you to listen to me." Baby. She used that word when she wanted something soft to cover something sharp. "I should have come to the hospital," she said. My throat tightened. There it was. Finally. Small, late, bruised, but there. "Yes," I said. "You should have?" She cried harder. "I saw the hospital text, but Madison was so excited about the weekend, and your father said you were probably being dramatic because you always handle things. And I thought if it was serious, you'd call again." I closed my eyes. I did call again. Silence. Madison declined it. More silence. Then Madison, quieter now, said, "I didn't know it was that bad." I almost whispered, "You didn't ask." Nobody responded. That was the real answer. They had not asked because the version of me they loved did not need care. She only gave it. My father came back on the line. "Leah, I'm asking as your father. Please help us one more time. Just one. After that, we'll figure it out." I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen. The old transfers, the credit card balance, the physical therapy estimate. The emergency savings I could finally rebuild if I stopped pouring it into a bottomless pit labeled family. "No," I said. My mother gasped like I had slapped her. My father said, "Even after we apologized?" "You didn't all apologize," I said. "You explained why you abandoned me and then asked for money." Madison started crying now, not screaming, which was worse in a way. "So what are we supposed to do?" "Call the mortgage company and ask for hardship options. Sell what you can't afford. Apply for jobs. Talk to the shop landlord honestly. Return the spa purchases if you can. Learn your passwords. Read your bills. Do what I did every month while you mocked me for being serious." My father's voice dropped. "That's cold." "No," I said. "Cold was seeing your daughter in a hospital gown and asking about the mortgage first." The line went so quiet I could hear my own heater clicking on. I continued, slower now. "I am not cutting you off because I hate you. I'm cutting you off because loving you has been costing me my health, my safety, my savings, and my self-respect. I can love you and still not rescue you. I can forgive you someday and still not fund the life that taught you to ignore me." My mother whispered, "Are you really walking away?" I looked down at my hospital bracelet. I had kept it on, maybe because part of me needed proof that it happened. I slid 2 fingers under the band and gently pulled until it snapped. "No," I said. "I'm walking back to myself." Then I ended the call. For a long time, I just sat there. No music. No dramatic storm outside. No instant peace. Healing did not arrive like fireworks. It arrived like quiet. Like my phone face down on the desk. Like soup warming on the stove because Noah had left extra. Like an email from my manager that did not ask me to prove my pain. Like my bank account. Bruised, but finally mine. Over the next month, the truth settled into everyone's life differently. My father lost the shop, not because of me, but because he had been months behind and too proud to admit it. My mother sold her candle supplies and took a part-time job at a craft store, where she discovered inventory does not care how emotional your excuses are. Madison moved in with a friend, took the bus, and posted fewer selfies. The house did not disappear overnight, but it changed. No more spa weekends. No more pretending. No more Leah quietly paying the difference between fantasy and reality. A few relatives called me cruel. Others called me brave. I stopped needing either label. The only label that mattered was free. Months later, my mother sent a message that said, I don't know how to repair this, but I know we broke it. I did not rush to answer. That was another lesson. Not every message deserves the old version of you. Not every apology requires immediate access. Some people think forgiveness means handing them the keys again, but sometimes forgiveness is simply refusing to carry hate while still keeping the door locked. What did I learn from all of it? I learned that family love without respect becomes a debt collector. I learned that being dependable is beautiful only when people still see you as human. I learned that boundaries are not revenge. They are education. They teach people where your life begins and where their responsibility starts. And I learned that if someone only remembers you when the bill is due, they are not missing you. They are missing your usefulness. So if you are listening to this and you are the Leah in your family, the fixer, the payer, the calm one, the person everyone calls only when something breaks, please hear me clearly. You are allowed to stop bleeding just because other people refuse to bandage themselves. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to say no without writing a 10-page apology for it. And if your absence makes everything fall apart, maybe you were never loved as a person. Maybe you were being used as the foundation. So tell me honestly, if your family ignored you in the hospital but called you 2 days later because they needed money, would you help them one last time? Or would you cut them off like I did?
Behind each video, my team and I are trying to create stories that are not only dramatic, but also useful and meaningful for viewers. The story is completely fictional and made only for entertainment and educational purposes. We hope it reminds you that walking away from disrespect can be one of the most powerful choices a person can make.